out as outside income and adjust the money that comes into the district based on income from a rental property. That is a potential liability there. I don't see anything in here that other than what this sheet is. Electricity, $3,400 a year for, I believe it was 8 units, if I understand correctly. All electric units, that's not enough. $1,200 a year for water, it's not enough. So I don't believe that these figures are accurate. Have you talked to your accountant? What is Chris Majors? Is he on board with this? Does he think this is a good idea? Because he's the one that oversees everything and reviews our budget and tells us how healthy our school district is. What is his input? Does our business manager, her input is highly important in a situation like this. So I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm saying there's a lot of stuff here that could put the district in a very financial risky business. We're not in the housing business. Yeah, we got a hard enough job to do to educate our kids. I know, I've been there. My wife's a teacher. I know a lot of you been around you guys a long time. It's tough. You know, we see what's going on in the news every day. Grants are getting cut. You know, the Trump administration, they're going through and trying to figure out where all some of this money is going. Some of this money could be affected to this, and it gets pulled out of the hat. So I think that you got to really look at what you're doing. I think you got to have the taxpayers more involved. You can't continue to go after property taxpayers for more money when you take $350,000 out of your account. You're telling them, we got enough money, we can go do this. You're putting a mill levy at risk. You're putting a bond at risk. The taxpayers, property taxpayers, need to be on board with this before you guys move forward with it. And if not, I think you're committing suicide with this thing.
Thank you. All right, Teresa Oaks, you are up next.
Hi, my name is Teresa Oaks. I don't have a composed speech like that. I just came to, you kept bringing up that it's an asset for the school.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are not in the business of real estate. You're not in the business of investing money. Your asset of the school are the children.
Mm-hmm.
That is your asset. We shouldn't be taking money out of our reserves and putting it into something that's gonna maybe pay us back in 40 years. We should invest what we need here, now, of the things that need to be taken care of, the field, teacher retention. Teacher retention is not done by housing. Housing is a huge thing for all entities. It's a huge, I mean, it's a problem when I worked at the doctor's office. How do we recruit physicians to come to this area? You have people to do that. You have real estate people. You have other investors. If you want to invest in it, then sell that property. It's 1 acre. Take that money and invest it in something else. Put it in a bond or a stock to get a little bit more interest in it so you can use it to pay the teachers. I don't think that it's a good idea to take that money and invest it. Not to mention it's over by the school bus barn. What are you going to do when we grow and the bus barn needs to grow? And you've taken that property away from the bus barn that's there. They're already tight on space as it is. They don't have enough bays to accommodate all the buses that are in there to do maintenance on them. What are you going to do when the bus barn needs to expand? How are they going to expand if you take that away? I think that before you make the decision to do that, I think you should listen to all of the concerns about it and realize that you guys are here to teach the children. That's the whole purpose of a school. The purpose of a school is not to invest in property management. That's pretty much all I got. Thank you.
Thanks. Carrie Summers.
I'm Carrie Summers. I've lived here in the Mancos Valley for 34 years. I've raised 3 kids. They did attend Mancos School. I have Colorado Ranch and Home Realty. I'm a broker. I'm also a property manager. Have a couple of concerns. First of all, just right down here in town, we have a 12 acres that's already been subdivided for 48 lots. It's going to sell. And when it does, that's 48 lots that could have single family homes on it. And so that's going to increase the kids. More kids are going to be at the elementary, at secondary, which is wonderful. There's some huge things to consider. One is if there's an influx and Vegas is continue to grow. I mean, you know, if you look at real estate, and yes, it is an asset to build something. Stick built is always preferred, above modulars. You know, the return on investment is huge. However, you have to look at the school and what we're for. So, the main thing is I think it's blurring what the vision of the school is. So teachers who happen to get into this district-run housing may feel that their personal and professional lives are overly intertwined, making it harder to separate work from home life. Then you know, is it gonna be available? Housing, there is a huge need for housing. Of course, the town is gonna waive all their fees because they've got, you know, people saying, we wanna move here. But these are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Those aren't, you know, you don't wanna have a family in there with 3 kids in a 2 bedroom or 1 bedroom apartment. It just doesn't work. I understand that the rent is, that amount is created by a percentage of, you know, affordable housing. What's affordable to me, to you, and everyone is different. However, CHAPA does give you restrictions on what percentage. We have the commons right next to my building. A 1 bedroom apartment up there is $1,100. Plus the tenant has to pay electricity, and I think it's, they have to pay internet as well. That's a lot. That is a lot. Teachers can't afford. That's not affordable housing for teachers, you know. The other deal is management. So you've allocated X amount of dollars for repairs and everything. Renters are tough, guys, are way tough. Okay, okay, and that's it. Thanks.
All right. Next up is Brian Oakes.
Well, I'm Brian Oakes. I've got a 7th grader and a senior in Memphis High School and then a junior high. All through their career, all I've heard is how the school doesn't have any money. It's always a battle, you know, trying to pay teachers, pay them enough, pay what we should. My business and I, we've donated a lot to the school. We sponsored a lot of stuff. I try to help out. I've seen some of the investments that the school does. The football field stadium is awesome. We can't even afford to take care of that because we're not gonna have any track meets this year because the track is damaged. We can't even afford to take care of that. So how do we go and build housing? The football field needs repaired. I know the gym floor needs repaired. All of that was just built. They can't even maintain that. So how are we gonna maintain affordable housing? I thought I heard right that the junior high needed a new roof. That took a while. That's just basic capital infrastructure stuff that needs to be taken care of. They can't even do that. So it's, schools should stay in the business of doing the school, taking care of what needs to be done at the school, and stay out of the housing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruiser? Rich Cruiser? Kruger, sorry.
Hi, Rich Kruger. I moved here in June, new teacher. I pay Chaffa. I live upstairs in the Manx Commons. And I'm grateful for it, or else it would be really hard for me. Right now, I'm at 40%. The amount I make here, 40% goes to my income, my rental. So, it would be very hard for me to live here if I were to have to rent from a more expensive place. I was attracted to this area because it is I've been coming here for the last 15, 16 years, and I really like Memphis, and I committed. Durango wanted to pay me more, a lot more money. But I chose this place because I believe in y'all. I believe in students, and I have reaped the rewards from the staff that I work with to the students I get to be a part of, and I really like being here. And I'm here because the Chaffaa put me here, and I can afford it.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you moved to the area, what were the rents comparable?
Yeah.
Did you do your homework?
Yeah.
Okay, so you
And
didn't
where
move
I
into
am
that,
now is beautiful. Like, it's a wonderful place.
but you didn't move into that because you were just like, here's this delivery. Did you do your homework before you chose that is what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Josh Gardner.
Yeah, Josh Garner, Dean of Students here. So I'm actually for the housing project. When Mr. Cordry first came on board with us, he surveyed all of us to find out some changes that we need to make in this district. And for me, it's all about teacher retention. You know, when my first year of teaching, I taught on the Apache Reservation, and there was nowhere to live, like down there in the canyon. And the only place I could live was in the teacher housing. When I moved here, and I'm grateful for that opportunity, when I moved here, I moved out here for the mountains. And that got me out here. My whole goal was to go to Pagosa Springs. So I moved out here, and this was the first job available close to Pagosa Springs. And I took the job, come out here in the summer, and I started looking at houses. There's nothing available here in town, not even close. And so I went to Cortez and started looking around with my wife. And this is in the summer before I was gonna start my job. And I looked at my wife and I was like, we're going back to Ohio. And she's like, why? I told her, there's no way. I can't live here in Cortez. I moved for these mountains. You know, I moved to be nestled up to the mountains. This Cortez does not feel the way I want it to feel. It's a 17-minute drive. These houses, I can get double the size of the house in Ohio back where we were. This just ain't happening for us. Luckily, because I was the only one employed at the time, my wife had a job that was gonna come about pretty soon at that time. But I made such little money that I was eligible for government housing. So I was able to move into blue apartments across the street based off my teacher income, basically being declared poor or not have enough money that I needed assistance with housing. I lived there for 4 years. Got to know this school, and I stopped looking for job postings in Pagosa Springs because I like the people here. What keeps me here is the mountains, the people, the small district. I was almost out the door. We're not gonna have full families come in here with 3 kids, 4 kids. We're gonna have young bucks come in here who want to adventure because we don't have a lot of people to hire around here. We got young bucks from out east who need to come here, see these mountains, fall in love with these people. And all we need to do is get them in the door, get their foot and those houses over there. And they can just see how great this place is. I could be in Cincinnati right now teaching. I'd be making probably double what I make here. You have to get the teacher in the door. And I'm telling you right now, the other schools are more competitive on every front. Teacher housing will give us an advantage that we didn't have before. And you know, my time is up.
Eloquently stated. Miss Jen Pesca.
And I wasn't prepared to talk tonight at all, and I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate all of the work that all of you do, and you're just so, I've been in meetings where there's some contention or disagreement, and the way you handle things in here, and Emily, I mean, it's amazing, so thank you. And thank you, all of you, for all the work that you do, and we are so busy doing what we do that we don't get over here enough, and you know, until something kind of catches our ear. And I just have been so excited about this housing because I know it's a problem. But then when I started thinking about it, I just think that, you know, there's so much division even in our own beautiful little district that I am so blessed to be part of. That, you know, because, you know, we want it, but then we don't want it at the expense of not having a school, if that could possibly happen. And it sounds like it maybe could. And because money is so tight and things are so unknown right now. And so I don't think that, I know it's a terrible thing because I understand what Emily said, but sometimes I think if we rush through something, and I know you haven't rushed through this, you spent 30 months doing this, but there's things that seem like that we didn't know, like even Tim seemed kind of surprised, like, oh, you mean that's $4,000 a year, not a month? You know, so I think that even with the people who are doing it, there's just a little bit of surprise. And I do think, like Teresa said, that our investment are the people, because the people here are unmatched. I mean, you know, this group of people right here in this room, these teachers, the children, in all of the schools, they're unmatched. And I think that that needs to be the priority. And so I just ask that we, you know, even if, since we can't even agree on it, maybe it's time not to just make a decision tonight to push that envelope, since we don't know things. We don't know about the grants and Mike said, we don't know things. And I get it, Josh is right. And maybe it means that some of us need to, you know, start thinking about renting our own homes and renting, you know, I talked to Kate Kearns and she was like, well, maybe I could do a couple apartments in my house because I don't have kids coming anymore. And, you know, and maybe like think outside the box, you know, I love that too, Rachel, think outside the box. And maybe it's gonna call some of us teachers to maybe open our homes or ask for people, you know, because I don't know, it just seems that, I can hear both sides and I think it's such a great idea, but I don't know if it's the time. And right now, we really want to get that mill levy passed. We want to get that bond. And I think if we start, like Blake said, if we go, oh, we have $350,000 to do this and to go into debt for, you know, pay off this debt for 39 years, I think people are gonna be like, are you kidding me? And so just more food for thought. And I know I kind of rambled, but thank you.
To perfection of timing. That's a teacher for you. She knows. Okay, I'm gonna give one more opportunity. There's only one more person on the list. Does anybody else want to speak? We don't know whether you're for it or against it, sitting in this room and if you don't speak. So that's one thing I'm gonna say. Okay, so assumptions will be made. Cresselia Watson.
I am Cecilia Watson, and I just wanted to take the time to say that, as of right now, I am a new teacher to this school district and stuff. I cannot afford you guys' housing at all. With the car payment I have, thank goodness I have a Jeep to drive through the winter. I just can't. I don't have the money to do it, to live in these houses if they were a thing, and you keep saying that it's an assessment. It doesn't feel like it's for the teachers. And I know it's originally for the teachers and now it's open to whoever kind of, but mainly for teachers. Doesn't sound like it's for us. And it doesn't sound like asset we want. I mean, asset preschool, kids go there. That makes sense. Building that we can't afford, that doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Okay, last call. Nobody else? All right, we're gonna move into.
Wait.
Okay,
I have two kids in the district.
what's your name?
Jessica Frey. I'm a staff member here at the elementary school.
Okay.
I have two kids in the district. I have a high schooler and an elementary schooler, and I get paid $1,600 a month to work here. And that doesn't cover my rent. That doesn't cover my groceries. That doesn't cover hardly anything. And what you're proposing is more than my paycheck for these houses that are supposedly full of teachers. But I hear that what we really need is, you know, an increase in our salary is what is going to retain teachers, not these expensive buildings that are not fully thought out and that are going to take all of our money that we need to put into our facilities to make them, you know, appropriate and for our children to come here. So I just feel like you're offering this to the teachers, but the teachers can't even afford what you're offering. And so what we're asking is for a salary increase, not houses that we can't afford.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm just
Mrs.
gonna,
Russell?
oh, Kimberly Russell, and my son graduated from here, and I worked here for 20 years, and I've scraped by for 20 years, but I love it here, and I'm not going anywhere. I just want to second what Jen said. If we're not unified here in this room on this project, then what makes us think that the community is gonna unify us. And I feel like it's too risky to ask for a mill levy, to ask for a bond, unless we're all on this together. And I feel like, I know you put in a lot of time, but we need more information and we do need more time. Thank you.
All right. With that, it's already 6:45, so my 30 minutes turned into 45. See, it's not just me, happens. We are going to, as per moved by Mrs. McWhorter, we're going to move into the discussion around this particular topic of strictly housing. That is to be board discussion. After that, we will complete the remainder of our agenda items and we will vote towards the end of our meeting. So I'm just setting the stage for those of you that wish to remain or not remain for the vote. It could be an hour or two, I don't know. All right, so in opening up the discussion, I am going to just open it up to the board to start. I have some notes of items that I want to address so that you all that do have concerns might get something answered perhaps, or at least understand some of the facts, because this really has to be put forth in as much factual data as possible instead of emotion and opinion. It's factual data that we've got to focus on. So with that being said, and Rachel, I'm going to call you out because you were, of all of us, the person with the most questions. So I would love for each of us to address the issue. I'll make sure each of us get the time to do that. And then we will circle back with the things I see that are not covered. And then we'll move forward. So, Rachel.
First I want to start off with, basically we're, we've all decided that our number one priority is our staff pay. That is absolutely number one. So if that is our number one, then we need to do all that we can do to ensure that this is going to happen, that we are going to get this increase. The best way we could do that is the mill levy override. We know that that's going to be an uphill battle. But we have to focus on it first to get it passed. Couple things that we talked about before, as far as this housing project. Basically, we're taking $350,000 out of our capital reserve to put forth as kind of our down payment for a loan that's at 2.5% interest from CHAFA. For half of it, the other half is going to be a 0% interest. If we kept that $350,000 in interest or in the Colorado Trust, we would be making about $15,000 annually. Take that over 40 years, we've got $600,000. Right now with the housing setup, because we're going through CHAFA and because it's low income, it is not it's not designed to make a profit. Okay, we'll be making a profit at 4,810 for the first year. Each year that goes up by 2% per DOH, whatever they decide is actual increases. But then you also have all of your other costs are going to go up. So over 40 years per the spreadsheet that we received from CHAFA, in 40 years, if we add all those together without having any outside interference or additional cost, that's only $398,099, which is right about 400,000. So we actually are still losing $200,000 in 40 years on just interest to profit. So we're really not doing this to make any type of money. Also, by doing a DOH, Department of Housing, and CHAFA grant and loan on this, it's going to lock us in to a deed restriction. We're going to have to keep the rents at the 70% average AMI annual or average median income. And for that would have to stay for the 40 years. So if we do go to try to sell this in 5 years, we need a new roof or whatever, that has to go with the sale. So not only do we have to sell this to cover our part of both of these $3.6 million in loan,
but it also has to be deed restricted. So to find somebody who's actually gonna pay that, to pay exactly what we need to pay off the loan is gonna be an uphill battle as well. Plus, again, we're not gonna really make anything off of this. So we're not making any money, we're putting money up for it. It's 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom as per the town doing some type of study on that's what we need for the town. However, what exact is the makeup from our staff in the last 2 years? What staff have we had come in and what is their family situation? Are we having all single people come in? Are we having families come in? If we want to try to boost kids in our school system, we need to look at more than just a 1-bedroom housing. So we need to look at those options. I know that we had a 3-bedroom when we started. Buyers said they didn't like the 3-bedroom, people stayed in them too long. We switched to a 1-bedroom, but that wasn't really communicated very good. None of that was communicated to our public. Our public knows really nothing about this whole project. And now we're pounding this through kind of under the radar until like the last, couple weeks. So the reason why we're trying to put this up right now, as quickly as we are, is because of the grant cycles. We're trying to get a DOH grant that's from Proposition 123, which is Colorado, voter put in 22, sales tax money. It'll be there every quarter. We can do this later. We do not have to push this through right now. Chaffla wants us to, but we don't have to. So I think that we should wait. I think that we should hold off on this. I don't think that we should can it. I think housing is a great thing, but we don't have to rush it now. Take time to figure out what we need. Take time to see what the exact family makeup we want. What is a community involvement? What are we gonna agree on? What's our profit? Do we want more profit? Do we want to not have DOLA involved? What if we don't have them? Can we rent more? Can we rent less? Like, what is the makeup of this? Where are we at? But those questions need to be answered first, because as soon as we put this loan or this grant package up, we cannot change it. So we have to have everything nailed down and perfect for this grant application. Because once it's there and we get it, we're stuck. So we have to have it right now. So why can't we just put this off later? Let's focus our attention right now on the mill levy override and on the bond to get what we have right now in perfect condition or better condition, and then see what we can do about housing. Okay, Victor.
Folks, we are truly interested in recruiting and retaining our staff. And our top 2 priorities are as follows. Paying our staff competitive wages so they can afford to live in the housing that they already have. And repairing and maintaining our student facilities. Both of these benefit our entire staff, not just the select few. Approving this housing project tonight will accomplish 3 things in my mind. First, it will require the district to draw $350,000. And tonight we heard that we have $500,000 worth of fixes that we have to do right off the bat. And then additional, we have a whole list of things that still need to be fixed. So we're gonna take $350,000 out of our savings that would go toward that. Second, we're gonna enter into a $2.5 million loan for 40 years. That's just, I'm sorry, that's just unheard of for a school district. And then we're required to maintain another facility before we even know if we can cover the cost of our current repairs within our district. It's not the time to do this. This will all be happening while we identify $500,000 in repairs to our football field and middle school. I just said that, so I'm gonna move. I am very concerned that a yes on this community housing project may bring our school district to the brink of bankruptcy, in all honesty. I hate to use that word, but that's what it feels like. For example, if the rent does not cover the loan payment, because of vacancies or damage, then the school district is still responsible for paying those loans. This is the opposite of financial stewardship. I am also concerned that while we muddy the waters with the community housing project, we will ask our taxpayers to approve an increase in property taxes through the mill levy and bond. This will create confusion when they see us asking for money, while at the same time being able to build a community housing project at the cost of $2.5 million. This is a risk I just am not willing to take. Macon staff are relying on us to create the best scenario for a salary increase. They are not asking us to take on a $2.5 million loan that will benefit a few staff members at best. We need to focus on maintaining a strong financial position, keeping our current facilities in good condition, and increasing staff salaries. We are in the business of providing the best education for every child we have and supporting our staff and teachers. I am not in support of the housing project that has left our community and teachers with more questions than answers. This is financially reckless and irresponsible. I love the school district and I love our community. Let's do the right thing for both of them.
Mr. Hunter.
I'm obviously of a different opinion. Some of the things that people have talked about, like I'll address one of the things for Blake, those numbers that you saw, those are just for the maintenance numbers. Those are not, the individual apartments will pay their own bills. Those numbers you said for maintenance for electrical and water, it's just for the maintenance of the facility. Just on that note, if we take that $350,000 and we spend it on repairs right now, it's gone. We have there's no investment in any kind of hard asset. And it's gone. It's not going to get any more interest. It's not going to give us any more interest over the next 40 years, period. So that's a weak argument in my point. People talk about having things available. We have a staggered lease process in play here, where there will be, at the time of hiring new staff, there will be places available for those staff to come into. And if staff doesn't take it, then we will rent it out to the community. And I don't think there's ever going to be a point, Victor, when those things can't be rented. Yeah, they're small. They're not meant to be forever homes. They're meant to give people a chance to get in here. Those rents that we're talking about that you say you can't afford to rent in any place around here right now. Those are the least costly rental facilities that we're going to find in this area. Generally speaking, you'll find one or two around, but for what's going to be built there. And this vote tonight is not to go through with the project. The vote is to participate with CHAFA to see where things are. A lot of these questions are answered in the process if we agree to go into this process. We're not giving that $350,000 up right now, tomorrow, if we vote for this. This is to start the process of them doing all their due diligence to answer all of those questions that we have. And if it comes down the line and those questions are not answered to our satisfaction, we're not in the deal for $350,000. The timing is essential right now. The timing is crucial right now. It's not just for the grant processes. It's because we have to do a whole lot of due diligence prior to putting those loan applications in there for these grants. And this opportunity will never arise again. I think even if it's for a few staff members, that's a benefit to our school district, or even a few staff members to have a place to live, to be in this place, to teach our kids. Because I am all about that. I don't think this will conflate. There's nothing about this housing project that has anything to do with teacher salaries. That's a completely separate issue. We can't use this money for teacher salaries. It's against the law. We can't do that. So we use this money for what we need to use it for. And yes, we have a lot of repairs to do. And yes, we're putting together a program to take care of that. And yes, we're gonna ask for money for that from our taxpayers. But I think that, those issues can be focused, those can be directed, and it can be very clear that we are not just spending money on a housing project. We're not doing the housing project. Chaffa is doing the housing project. We are investing a piece of our property and some upfront money to have a facility for both our staff and for our community.
Mr. Benelli?
This project for me, from the beginning a year ago, was really innovative. I thought it was something that was kind of a moonshot for what we could do, what we can provide. In addition to the discussions of retention and paying more, the more and more that I see the complexities of the idea of paying more to our teachers versus the upkeep of our school, there are so many moving parts. And they're recurring costs. They're things that are always going to be there, whether we save that 350,000 now, spend it down the line, 500,000, it's going to be the same thing next year and the year after that. There are so many things that are going to go along with any property that we have. We're not in the business of renting properties or maintaining properties, but we kind of are. And we have assets. And as a school district, those assets should be managed correctly. I mean, yes, it's currently sitting in the reserve fund and it's earning a certain amount of interest, but the interest that it could accrue as a different kind of asset is bigger. It's really difficult to make this decision. I'm usually one who will listen to people's thoughts and really mull it over and listen to everybody's concerns and questions. And I just want to make sure that everybody comes at this being on the same page. You know, this is a vote, like Tim was saying, it's a vote to move forward with the process and see what happens. It's not opening up the wallet right now and giving that 350,000 and saying that we're going to do this. This is just to see the viability of it. On that part, I'm very supportive of it. I've seen and met people in other school districts who have had a lot of success with teacher housing or community funded housing in Colorado, but even historically with Native tribes and being an underserved community. Rural communities don't have very much to offer, and so we can't attract talent. It might be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, but maybe that's our need right now, is just giving that one teacher in that's gonna stay because they have a roof. And I think it's just, for me, it's all those pieces start to fall in line if we start offering those opportunities and we have the ability to do it. I like the idea that there is a possibility of having a subdivision or whatnot in town that's gonna have all these different lots open for sale. Those units have been open for a long time and haven't been developed. And you're also looking at the cost of, that's gonna be unregulated property costs as well. So it's gonna be multifamily homes. And your first year teacher is not gonna be able to pay that. Those are my concerns. My other side of this is that we are in very, very uncertain and troubling times when it comes to trying to provide stability for our community, for our families. And that's really got me on the fence. Because even just considering what our school district is gonna get from the state for funding. There's a lot of questions with that. There's so much up in the air. You know, if the governor decides to go with his budget formula versus what the districts have provided, that's a scary step, you know, how much money are we gonna lose? Either way, I think there was that report that we saw that just came through that said, if we go with what, Polis wants to do with his proposed budget, we're gonna lose funding that would cover 9 teachers. That's not saying prospective 9 teachers, that's 9 teachers that are gonna be affected by what we can't have from the state for our funding. I don't know what to do with that, or to go forward with that. You know, do we take this risk and put these assets and this thought into the community and support our community and try to stand alone within our community? Or do we try to figure out what's gonna come from the state and what may or may not come from the federal government? You know, that those are all unknowns that make this decision that's so difficult. It's the right opportunity at the wrong time. And I think that's the problem. There's always gonna be that. And like it's been mentioned before, Mancos is risk adverse. Mancos does push back against change. Having been on the town board, I know what that's like trying to pass, you know, any kind of ordinance or any kind of bring in any kind of business or that kind of stuff. It's an uphill battle to try to do that because people don't want to change. There's that risk of like, what if so-and-so comes in? What if so-and-so? It's such a delicate balance. The hardest thing for me in thinking about this is that through everything that we've done, there's been so much misinformation. There's so much passion behind it, but it's also something that's potentially dividing up our district. Our school is gonna get split up by who wants it and who doesn't. Man, it's such a hard feeling. I think for me, that's the hardest part, because I've been through that as well. Having a school that's divided and what that feels like. So it's a difficult one. It's a really difficult decision. You know, we have the opportunities, but there's money involved that's being put up and support from an agency that wants to help guide us through this. You know, it is a risky endeavor, but a lot of the risks are being assuaged. The difficulty I'm finding with the bond issue and mill levy override is that that's an additional ask on property owners. And there's already been a huge ask year over year. We haven't done it in a while, but there's still some hurt feelings over the last one because of all the repairs and the mismanagement of the last bond that we had asked for on the project. That's also informed by my time when I was on the town board, is there was some communication that wasn't followed through with and some things that were promised that didn't happen. Mainly the, you know, between the performance center and the middle school, that section was supposed to have been paved. You know, that's one thing. We didn't have the money for it. But that's where I'm at. I'm on the fence. I really want this to happen. I really, really want it to happen. But then I'm risk adverse as well. So that's where I'm at. I just want us to make sure that we consider that it's okay to take these risks if we know that we have contingencies for them.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the costs, we're gonna have costs every year. And it's just managing those. And if it's something that we can do safely, that's, you know, that's part of the discussion as well.
Okay, so in summary, I want to make a few points here.
I would also like to get Chrissy's opinion as well, please.
Then I will let Miss Chrissy comment first.
Okay, well, I personally am a very conservative person. And I feel like I need to be for our district to make sure that we remain financially stable. The question I've been asked so much lately is where is our fund balance? What is that amount in our general fund reserves? Okay,
So we approved, we trued up our budget in, last month, in January. You guys all approved our budget. And on paper, that budget said we would be deficit spending $408,000. What that means is we have more expenditures in our budget than we do revenue, okay? That's on paper. Typically, year after year, just because we budget our budget gets put together, doesn't mean we're gonna spend every penny within that budget to where we don't have to deficit spend. Does that make sense? So with that being said, worst case scenario, if we did, because we don't know what the future holds, what our expenditures are going to be before June 30th. We're currently sitting with that $408,000 deficit at $2.6 million in reserves of general fund. So if we take out $350,000 for the housing project, what is that gonna drop us down to? 2.3. 2.3, just like that, okay? If the bond doesn't pass, which none of us have a crystal ball, we don't know, you know, just thinking of the one fix that we need to do is the practice field, football field, and track. The consistent estimates that we've been given are about $500,000 to fix those projects. So if the bond doesn't pass, yikes, that's another 500 grand coming out. So we're going from starting this budget cycle, we were at $3.1 million, okay? But by the time we trued up our budget and realized our expenditures were more than our revenue, we could literally be down to $1.8 million, just like that. To me, that's scary. Because I'm gonna tell you how we grew our fund balance over the past, I don't know, well, in 2020, we were at $2.1 million in our reserves. Okay, that was right around COVID. Well, when COVID hit, we had all the stimulus money coming into the school districts from the government. So that allowed us, those were called the ESSER grants, if you guys remember that. That actually came into us and we were able to use those stimulus dollars in place of some of our regular expenses within our budget, which helped us grow that fund balance from 2.1 up to that 3.1. We grew that $1 million. But the majority of the reason was because of the ESSER dollars that we did receive. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that it is so hard to save money. And with the cost of inflation, with the federal grants being kind of iffy right now, don't know where that's going to go, wanting to give the money to our staff as much as possible, just all those factors, I just want to caution us to be careful how we spend that $350,000. I know that doesn't seem like a ton of money, but it is if we don't get a bond, because we got to fix the fields. I mean, we can't continue, but that's crazy. We have to do something there. So I just want everyone to realize that we can drop that money so quickly, and it could take us years and years and years to replenish. And in this day and age, it's just hard to save money. In our personal world, the same thing applies in the district, especially when we're trying to increase everybody's compensation. I mean, that's a number one. So I just, just want everyone to be aware of those things. And just so people know, fund balance can only be spent on non-reoccurring expenses. Just want to make sure everybody understands that. That fund balance cannot be used for salaries because that is a reoccurring expense. But if that mill levy were to pass, that would mean that would be a reoccurring expense with our salaries. We could build that into our salary schedule, which would allow for us to increase salaries. But if that doesn't pass, for us to increase salaries is gonna be a challenge, I'm not gonna lie. I looked at our student count right before I came in here. We built our budget on 475 kids this year. I looked at our power school right before I came in, we're at 458. We're down 21 kids since January's budget. Actual. That's scary, but I don't know what that means. That doesn't mean that when we start the new year, we're gonna have more kids. That fluctuates so much, but there's so many different options in the world for kids to go do schooling, that that's just something to consider. If our student count keeps at that rate, that's a lot of funding we're not gonna get. And so what does that mean for staff? Can we still support the same amount of staff? I just want you guys to think of these things because that's more of a big picture. We also have some grants sounds right now that may not be renewed. We have salaries attached to those grants already. So what do we do with those positions? Do we absorb that in general fund? Well, if we do that, then that means less raises. If we don't, that means some people don't have a job to come back to. All those things just matter in the big picture of our budgeting cycles. And I just want you guys to know that I'm super cautious and I feel like I need to be because it's taxpayers' money and I don't feel like we should be, risky when we don't need to be. I kind of like what Rachel said, and I'm not giving my opinion. I don't want to give my opinion. I'm just trying to give you fact. But if we don't have to make the decision now, why don't we just wait and see how the bond and mill levy go? Because that's going to change the game for us all. If we don't pass those, we're in trouble. Because we have, if you notice the list Estrie compiled, with the help of that PSI company, we have a lot of money there we're gonna have to come up with somehow, some way. 250,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but it will fix something in this district. So it's just things to think about. I'm not trying to discourage one way or the other. I'm just saying be cautious because money's hard to come by. And I just feel a responsibility to make sure that we don't overspend because our budget currently, we are overspending. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm hoping that I'll be right, that we may only deficit spend $200,000. I'm hoping that's how we end up this fiscal year. But that's, who knows? But I want you to also understand that there's a fund balance for general fund. There's a fund balance for cap reserve. In our cap reserve fund, which is separate from general fund, we only have $75,000 in that account. That's the projected amount at the end of this year. So that's not gonna go very far with any of these capital improvements that we do need to do. So with that being said, I just want you guys to understand how this finance world is working for me, and it's a giant puzzle trying to figure out the priorities and what needs to go where. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Chrissy, you mentioned 21 students. We're down 21 students from our projected. And each student, the state pays us
$13,000.
So we basically, and I'm just using approximate, just a guess, about $30-something thousand.
$273,000.
How much?
That equates to about $273,000 right now.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we're gonna end the year with that. Doesn't mean that we're not gonna get a lot of fluctuation when school starts. It's hard to say. I just wanted you to know, when I build this budget for next year, I'm building it at 458 because I'm gonna project we're gonna have more kids because it's so hard to shave that budget. And that's what happened this year in this.
And it happens year over year that you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down.
But we always say this is the first year since I've been budgeting that I have had to shave money off of that budget when we started to true it up in January. We've always budgeted to where we had the same amount of kids come in the district that we were very close to have on our budget. This year we were down 11 kids. That's a hit. And now we're down 21 more on top of that. For whatever reasons, I don't know. I don't know where the kids are going. I don't know what's going on there. I don't have that information. But again, that doesn't mean that that's the number we're gonna be at when October count rolls around. We could be back right up where we are. I don't know. But going off of the information I have in front of me, that's where we're at.
Chrissy, in our October count, we got we were 11 kids under
Yeah.
your projection at our October count.
Correct.
We did not lose the money for 21 kids. We lost money for the 11 kids that you projected.
For the January budget, yes.
But right now, we're 21 kids below that.
Correct.
Right now.
Yeah, we're at 458, I believe is what the number was.
So the real risk comes about for next October.
It does.
Which
So-
goes through a summer and a whole cycle and movement.
But that's
and
also
all of that.
something, because I'm starting to build that budget now.
Mhm. Correct.
So those matter to me and matters to the district, matters to the whole financial stability, the salaries, the whole kit and caboodle. And it matters to me right now,
That is
but.
to us, because we're approving the budget.
Right,
Right.
but the
And
bottom line, if we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know where that number is going to be.
bingo, we don't have a crystal ball.
We don't.
We didn't know we needed to buy buses. We didn't know we needed to replace a roof in the middle school. We didn't know that we had capital reserve spending that has this year been in excess of
Huge.
what I've seen in all the years.
Yeah. It's
But what do
because
you do? Not buy the bus? Then you have 0 kids,
We
right?
did what
I
we
mean,
needed to do.
there are unexpected expenditures and hurdles. There is risk involved in finance
Every
month,
do,
every
yes.
year. This is what the board, any school board faces. And districts have less money presented to them today, regardless of Polis and his, unknown. Again, we're talking about a lot of unknowns. We just don't know. We
And
don't have
that's
a
school
crystal ball.
finance for you.
It is our job to be fiscally responsible.
It is.
Part of fiscal responsibility, and this is what nobody's talking about, is not just looking at today and next October. It's looking at 30 years from now sitting in a 127-year-old building. 120, whatever years it is. I should probably get that number right, because I say it, but I don't know. 1899 or
19.
whatever. It's old.
So
So it's a lot to maintain that.
It
And
is.
so,
Expensive.
people live in the now a lot of times. That is the challenge of whether it be town planning, school planning, right? I plan for a business, all of those things have to plan down the road. How are we gonna be viable down the road? In your opinion, tell us, where are we earning our money right now? What sources do we earn money from? That's what I'm interested in. Just sources.
just like on interest,
Just, yeah, how do we earn money for the school? How do we earn it? Not what the state pays
just
us,
investments.
which
CDs,
are,
our CDs, we have $650,000 in CDs. The remainder of that fund balance is in Color Trust.
okay. And that's the money that, Rachel, you brought forth was interest in that trust account. We are only able to earn revenue right now through interest, correct?
Yes, that's all we have.
And I appreciate your detailed explanation of the reserves growing and a lot of that being due to some or somewhat ESSER grants or
Yep.
stimulus money.
Yep.
And it did allow us to increase our cap reserve or ending fund balance for cap reserve, the unrestricted, from 2.1 to 3.1 million. And then we just this year have seen it sharply decline because of all of these unknown emergencies. And we could take another $220,000 hit at the end of the year if we can't balance the budget.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's kind of a summary, if you will, financially, which is your job and you're amazing at it. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't know. I just want you guys to know where we stand. Just because we don't, school finance, nobody knows anything.
It's very difficult.
You're projecting. It's the most backwards way to
Mhm.
go. It's so frustrating for me. So you just never know. So you have to do the
Mhm.
best with what you know. And like you said, Governor Polis, he puts out all these projections. Well, that's where I start because that's all I have.
Uh-huh.
And then that's gonna change and he'll give us a revise and then he'll give us another revise. And I keep working with those numbers because that's all I have.
And fiscal responsibility does not just lie in the amount of money we spend.
No.
It does not. Fiscal responsibility definitionally is the ongoing operations in a responsible manner that will allow the district to move forward and maintain viability.
I agree with that.
If we were to get close to bankruptcy, the state would be in here all over us. That hadn't happened yet, and let's hope to hell it doesn't ever happen in the future.
Agreed.
Now, Mr. Cordray, since Chrissy has offered her insight, and I know you have done a lot of work with CHAFA and with the committee as a whole. I want to remind everyone, we as a board have one employee. We charged Mr. Cordray with answering what was given to us through insight and committee work to meet the needs of what the district was asking for. And teacher retention was at the top. And knowing that we couldn't just raise salaries tomorrow, this is a very small part of what a much bigger ask that we charged him with. Therefore, since you've been leading the charge and it is your job to deliver back to the board a recommendation and all of the data and all of the work behind it and engage the board as appropriate before we make a decision, I would like your feedback as well as you've gone through that process and what your thoughts are if you were to make a recommendation to the board. What would your recommendation be? And yes, I'm totally putting you on the line. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, you know, this is why we have boards.
Mhm.
And this is why the boards are elected from the public. This is why boards we ask them to be wise. And that's what I look for in board. I want them to make wise decisions. And that's, you know, that's why they're here. You know, what we've seen, I'm really financially oriented as a person. My bachelor's degree is in finance. I see numbers. I've been, you know, working in this area for 22 years. I've worked in environments that had financial distress, and so I had to learn it the hard way, you know, and so I understand the numbers of a school district and a school organization. And I've seen this organization grow its ending fund balance over the last 8 years from 1.2 million to 3.2 million. And that's really terrific and that's remarkable. And you do that so that you can have a rainy day, so that you can do things. My 4 years in this school district, the most challenging things we've had to do is pay staff what they're worth and then recruit and retain staff. That's been the charge. And that's been the most challenging thing. And we've had a very hard time just in these 4 years recruiting the best staff. And frankly, you know, Mr. Kruger is just a godsend, and he just landed on our doorstep. And fortunately, there's an opportunity for him to land here. And that's what we're trying to make, is more opportunities like that. Fortunately, there was affordable housing for Mr. Gardner, and he was a godsend. And you know, we just want to make these opportunities available. And this project will allow us to make these opportunities available for 2, 3, or 4 agents. We have the lowest turnover rate of teachers in the area, but that still means we're gonna lose 6 or 7 teachers a year. We have to have a place for them. When I moved to the community, even on my salary, I couldn't afford Mancus. Our secondary principal moved to the community and he can't afford Mancus. He's looking to purchase in Cortez. We need to find a place to land people so that they can build, you know, their lives here. So this would add a really healthy tool to our toolbox for retention and recruitment. It'd be really valuable. The rents that are shared in the documents that you've seen, and you've been very open and transparent with those documents, and we shared the full PowerPoint. Those are the maximums for those AMIs. We can go lower if we needed to or wanted to, but that's all part of the figuring things out as we go. Our strong suit in Mancus School District is student enrollment. kids come to us either from Dolores or Cortez, we are the most attractive school district for kids and families. And that's why we have the highest percentage of out-of-district kids. That's not going to change. That's just who we are. We're very attractive. So of the school districts in the county, we're the only one that's stable or increasing over the last 5 years. So that's a very positive trend for us to know also. So I feel like that $350,000 will remain in Colorado Trust, or it'll be invested in an opportunity to recruit more individuals like Rich and Josh. And so I think it would work out. I'm very confident of that fact. I think it'll be a beautiful asset. It'll be one of the many things that sets Memphis School District apart from the other school districts. And so that's why I feel like it's a worthy endeavor.
Is there a real risk that should we choose to put this decision off and not move forward until as late as November, that Chafa will abandon us because they haven't actually awarded? They've said, we want to work with you, but they haven't actually, they don't have a signed signature on an engagement letter, correct? What is that risk?
It's a very real risk that delaying means we can just delay. And frankly, if that risk didn't exist, that would also attack my thinking some. But they have a mission to make affordable housing available throughout the state. And so that's what they're going to do. So I think there's a very real probability that this won't be available in 6 months or 8 months or 10 months for us. If it was set in stone that it would be, then we could easily wait 6 months or 8 months or 10 months. But I don't think that's they don't know the answer to that question, and so they can't answer that question for us. In fact, they're remarkably surprised that we would consider that, because this is such a remarkable opportunity that they're providing for us. They're in their mind, they would have never considered that someone would not go with a 2.5% interest rate, and the second only being paid back from profits.
And 0%.
At 0%. That's just unheard of. It's a gift. It's a gift.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Rosalinda and Liv, I would like to have you each give us your thoughts, please. Like, does it make sense? Like, do you understand what we're talking about? Like, where is it and what we're talking about?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just like a really, in my opinion, just like daunting thing.
Big thing, right? Have you heard teachers or families, students and others discussing housing? Like, have you heard any of your peers talking about moving, where they live, moving here, Rosalinda, you drive from Cortez, right?
Yeah,
You don't live in this town.
no.
Okay.
I live in Cortez and I live in like a 4-bedroom house and it costs only like $1,500 a month. So like, I guess 1 bedroom for $1,000 would kind of be a lot. And I think that this is a really big and complex thing because there are like so many ways that this could go and risks that will come with it. And it's really hard to make a decision that would benefit everybody.
It's good that you see the risk. To be mindful of risk. Okay. So I want to remind everybody that we are simply electing to move forward in order to, the ask will be, the vote will be, should we move forward to continue to pursue? This is not a vote to spend $350,000. That is what is being proposed that we spend if it comes down exactly the way that Chaffa has laid it out. Okay? So the vote is, we believe it is viable and that we would like to continue the pursuit. Is there zero risk? No, there's risk because we will have to engage with Chaffa. We also could have to spend some funds up to, let's say, up to $100,000 is the risk over the course of time before we actually know that we're moving forward because we are confident as a board that we can move forward. This is not the end of the discussion should the initiative move past tonight. The risk is if we don't make this decision, or if we decide yes or no, if we decide no, or we're gonna wait, the very real risk is that this will evaporate. So I know we've been tossing around free money. It's not free money, but there are almost $500,000 in grants being considered. And then there is a note, and part of that note is at 2%, part of that note is at 0%. Yes, it's a no. If nothing else, what I believe that we've accomplished right now is that now people are paying attention. Okay? There is always risk in decisions surrounding the longevity and the financial security and health of a school district as school boards are being asked to approve budgets. Quite frankly, we approve a $6.1 million budget. I believe that was our budget this year. It was right between 6 and 7. We're looking at between $6 and $7 million annually and are approving that spend. This project and what we're talking about and spending so much time on tonight is the initiative to move forward with the risk of $100,000. The grand scheme of things, I get it, but there's a lot that is on the plate of a school board member, as Mr. Mitchell brought forth earlier. This is an ongoing exercise of concern and readdress and concern and readdress. The town is unable to develop property for housing. We know that to be true. Yes, there are going to be future lots which will bring future children. Who knows when any of that's going to happen? The town has to also work on water and other systems that they're committed to doing. So they are backing us because they know that housing won't happen anytime soon unless, you know, some multimillionaire decides to move in and grease us with this gigantic checkbook. It's not happening. How much property will we have to lose? We actually own a pretty big chunk of land, not just the bus barn, but also in front of the bus barn and surrounding the bus barn. We haven't used any of that property to date. I don't see us doing anything with it anytime soon. We host the bins for recycling, and it's a big dirt hill. There is, you know, something to be considered around the development of the frontage road there in our community that we also love, which is why we're here expressing our opinions today. So the development is to be seen. There's been a mock-up drawn. It's changed twice. It might be 6 units. It might be 10 units. They might be built panel. They might be built stick. We don't have those things determined and set in stone. We do know that there will be a deed restriction. We do know that we will be governed by law to meet 80% AMI, 80% AMI is the max we can charge. We also know that we are governed, no matter whether we're individual, business, or school district, by fair housing laws. There are laws that we are relegated to follow no matter what. The board, per our discussion, has already had a lot of discussion around the fact that we know without any shadow of a doubt that we, A, are not equipped to run a housing development, and B, are not funded to run a housing development today, and that we would contract this out so that there was no bias and that it was professionally managed under in accordance with those laws. That has all been built into the pro forma that has been presented to us today. that is part of what is already the pro forma being the projection into the future, already being considered. Because I don't think that any of us want to have to manage that. This is the decision based around, do we move forward? And eventually, do we build this project? And then how do we run it? And then what does that do for the school? What does that do for us today? What does that do for us long-term? That's really the bigger picture. The details around everything else, it's just, we can't even begin to say this is the way it's gonna be. But again, if nothing else, people are noticing what we're talking about. I disagree that we've been under the radar. I believe that we've been trying to make sure that we're being transparent. However, there is a lot, and if we were to put in front of the public on a regular basis, everything that we're doing, you all would, it would take a month and then you would be checked out. Like it's a lot and we all don't have time. And therefore that is, it is the purpose of the board. The board has been instructed to, ensure that we have all personnel and we maintain district operations and carry out our educational programming. And I'm pulling that right out of my board book because we gotta have money to do that. And what is very apparent is that we operate on a very thin budget. And even our thin budget at 6 million annually is thin, but it's a big number, right? Mm-hmm. And I asked you a pointed question earlier. How much money do we earn? How do we earn it? We don't earn a lot, and we have one way to earn it right now. And not many districts think outside the box in terms of earning money. And no, this is not gonna earn us as much as the interest initially, but there is possibility, and that is thinking innovatively. And that is the difference between being comfortable and secure and taking a little bit of risk. That's just a statement of fact. We are not going to ever be able to tax our way into any situation where we are competitive in terms of housing, nor salary, really. We'll go after the mill and we'll get it. I hope. But even if we did, we're still going to struggle. We're still going to be under Durango. We're still going to be under Telluride. We're still going to be probably under Cortez. We can go after the mill and win it tomorrow, and we are still going to be underneath everyone. Same with Bond. We're still going to struggle to maintain our school. And I want to be clear, we're not just maintaining what came out of the last project. These issues we're dealing with are not just the track. It just happened to be an act of God that now the track is unusable. That was not fidelity in terms of the project. That was, here we are 5, 6, 7 years later, and we've got something to deal with. How do we do it? If we were to sit on our savings and just use our savings, if you will, to try to maintain our school, as Chrissy explained, we will be broke real fast. It's not going to happen. Then what do we do? Go after another bond? I don't know. That's work for another board down the road. So again, setting ourselves up to see down the road is really part of the work we're doing today. Is it risky? Absolutely, it's risky. Is it guaranteed? No, it is not. But nothing worth it in life is. That's just it. We are still held accountable. We're going to be held accountable for fiscal responsibility. We're going to be held accountable for housing laws, taxes. We are going to think about this. If it were to pass, it would then become our duty to ensure that it is executed in fairness and able to serve the right people at the right time in the right best possible way, with the most affordable rents we can make, with the lease terms matching what makes sense, with not putting ourselves in a situation where we fill housing with someone not associated with district or family. Mancus United, if you will. It feels, I think, like, you know, it feels very risky, and that's very scary, and we're all feeling the pressures of that. But I also feel the pressures of the very basic needs that we've recently faced. It's all the more reason to be considerate of how to think differently. We can't buy buses every so many years. We can't replace roofs every so many years. We cannot provide housing or or we cannot provide the level of what our staff deserves based on what we know and the feedback given. We will never meet those needs. So we have to think differently. It's why we passed a maternity policy. It's why we look at sabbaticals. It's why we're looking at discretionary days. It's why we're trying to figure out what we can give people. The ability to potentially have a stepping stone to retain the Josh Gardners and the Mr. Krugers and those that are in our world today and retain them here is what we're really looking at. This isn't long-term housing. It's not going to be presented as long-term housing. I don't want to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot comfy home that someone can have their dog in, because I want them to do what Mr. Gardner did, which was say, well, I'm not staying here because I want to have a house over there. And I'm going to do what I got to do to go get there. And it might take me a few years, but I can get there. This is a stepping stone, really, or it is a way to meet a need that people, they just can't even get inside of our town limits today. They can't even get inside of our town. Our own superintendent is not living inside of our town limits. Many of us in this community were blessed through family heritage, or we got in early enough, right? Including myself. I've been here 10 years. I was lucky. If I had to buy a home today, wouldn't do it, couldn't do it. We've been lucky, but the boom and our economy has not afforded us any favors in retaining our people. It hasn't. And what's out there is pretty tough. So, do we have a lot of hard decisions? We do. I will leave the discussion with this. I lived here, I grew up here, and I left for 20 years. And I've spent the last 20 years of my personal career growing a business from nothing to something. And that something being well over 30 million a year in revenues. I didn't do that in partnership with my founder. I didn't do it myself. But I did half of it with a team of 3 people. All right. And that driving force was this one thing. And that is a very simple quote. That is, do not let perfection get in the way of progress. We oftentimes are looking for a perfect, assured answer. And when we don't understand that we are going to be affirmed in that answer, we get nervous and we tend to stick to those more conservative ways. And that very, very well may be what we do today. If it is, when it comes to housing, I just want to make sure that everyone understands this won't ever happen. At least not in our lifetime, I don't believe. And if we sell the property, we sell the property. And then we've lost that asset. And so I would just ask us all to consider, not today, not next year's budget, I want us to consider the bigger picture of what we're being asked to consider or to focus on, which is our community, our staff, and the longevity of a school district. It's tough. It's really hard to take risks, but that's where the reward comes from. It comes with risk. Nothing ever worth it is given without risk. Nothing ever worth it is given without hard work. And we have to understand whether or not we're willing to take that risk and willing to do. Can we do the work? Do we believe that Mr. Cordray can do the work? Because we're not up here doing the work. We're making the decision. And then we're supporting that work. But it's really not our work. It's the district as a whole. It's a big decision. It is, again, just a decision to move forward and continue down the path. It's not a decision to spend $350,000. I want to be very, very clear with that. Okay, I'm done. I was the last to speak, but I will, if anybody else wants to offer anything quickly, I will open the floor to anyone on the board table. Right? Ken, anyone? All right, now we're gonna blaze through the rest of this so that we can come to the real deal. Sort of blaze through, there's a lot of stuff. Mr. Cordray, I understand that Sarah could not be here tonight. Can you please present to us the summary of the DSC?
Yeah, they received, they had the pleasure of hearing from Effie and Laura and Josh and Brad, and they really enjoyed learning about 2B. They were really very impressed with the seriousness of which the school district addresses the wellness of students and staff. And it was just really well received. So that's what I believe you with, Madam President, is 2B was really well received by the DAC. They were very appreciative.
Awesome. I love that. I will say, I was sad to have missed that presentation. So I had to ask the board earlier to give me their summary, so
You got it?
good work to, all that did. Okay, let's go right into, our LRC and CASB update. Mr. Figueroa, if you could, please provide those.
Yeah, so I'm gonna update on CASB, which is the Colorado Association of School Boards. That's an organization that we're all part of and that supports us in many, many ways, just for the regular public. And LRC is legislative, a group of CASB members that really monitor the bills that are going through that may affect us in the school district. So I sent a report, it's a public report. I'm not gonna go over every single one of those just due to time because we've had a long meeting already. So I'm just gonna hit on a couple of highlights and then moving on. So just in CASB update, as the CASB went to a legislative conference, it's February 27th and 28th, and I'll be attending that. Just so all board members know, CASB is changing their schedule as it relates to when we're going to have the delegate assembly and the CASB convention. Usually we have it, I think it's close to Christmas. This year it's going to be September 6th.
Oh.
So we need to put that
I
date
love that.
down. And when that information comes out, obviously I'll get it out to everybody. That being said, we usually have amendments that we always look at. People that, so districts present amendments that they want the legislators to look at and consider supporting. So that is going to be due between June and July this year. So if we're thinking of creating some amendments, we want to have that done sooner than later. And I'll just keep telling you guys, and if we have some ideas around that, I'm going to be thinking pretty hard and see if we can do something.
Have you heard anything from other LRC members about what kind of stuff might be being proposed?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. It's too early. Yeah. Okay. So LRC, I just want people, I sent an update about communication devices in schools. There's a bill right now that's going through the House of Representatives, and it's all about communication devices in schools. And basically it says concerning requiring an adoption policy regarding student communication devices. We have a policy in place. A lot of it has to do with cell phones. You know, our position is we have these things, many districts have these things in place already, so you legislating it is a waste of time. But then more than that, CASB basically is not happy with this bill because it interferes with the local control issues.
Exactly.
And they are going to talk with them about this some more. But right now, we've decided we're not going to really support this as it's written. But if it does pass, it doesn't change anything we're already doing. There's a Senate Bill 25-123, education curriculum on genocide against Native Americans. The bill basically expands the Holocaust and genocide study curriculum taught in public schools. So they want it to become more detailed for our students. And so there's a bill that's going through that basically expands Holocaust and genocide study curriculums. I want you to be aware of House Bill 25-1079. I talked to you guys about this Independence Ethics Commission jurisdiction. And basically, this is a committee that basically looks at complaints that the citizens file around ethics violations. This bill basically extends that to school boards and school administrators, like our superintendent or other administrators that head up certain things in the district. And they say if they get complaints, basically, they're gonna investigate those complaints, and they're going to determine whether that there's real evidence to that, and possibly give consequences. So, you know, Caskey's against that.
It's a House bill? It's a House bill?
It's a,
It's HB.
it's a, it's a House Bill 1079. Then lastly, just something that because we have educator pathways, well, we don't have educator pathways, but there's a bill that's coming through, it's Senate Bill 25-154. And basically, it's a bill that requires early childhood, special education, elementary, and special education journalist licensures. And basically what this bill is about is they're saying, look, we want to make sure that we get these teachers, so they don't have to take courses. If they want to go and take the test and they pass the test, then we will give them a license. They don't have to, right now, you have to show you took all your classes and that you passed your test, your state test. They want to get rid of that, and they want to say, I want to make it easier. If you want to just take the test and you have the knowledge and you pass it, we'll give you a license for all those areas. It's early childhood, special education, elementary, or special education journalists. That's my update.
Excellent, thank you. Mrs. McWhorter, you have plenty of BOCES information that you shared.
BOCES, lots of BOCES. We'll get to that in a minute. Cool. So a couple things around the area. Because I haven't done an update about everybody. Bayfield is starting to search for new superintendent. Cortez is looking at a $47,000 base pay and possibly splitting their elementary K2 in one building and a 3 through 4 in another building. Dove Creek has finished up their elementary. They're now looking for a best grant application for a new low ag building because they're currently using their old bus barn. Dolores has received everything for the best grant. They're now hiring their owner's rep and architect, and so they're hoping to break ground this summer. And Pagosa was the other one at the meeting, and they're working on their master plan, and surveys have gone out to the community regarding the prioritization of said master plan. All right, for the Royce, for executive director, we're still working on the strat plan. They had a superintendent advisory council retreat. So Todd, if you want to add anything to this, let me know. Overall, the BOCES budget, 91% of their total budget is personnel cost. So it's, when we're looking at staff raises for BOCES, it's going to be huge. The superintendents have asked for more info on the 3 different service models that BOCES is looking at. Basically, you've got one that is like the most things BOCES offers, you know, all the positions, everything at the highest rate, or like the lowest is like completely bare minimum, no raises to what the district pays into it, and what can basically BOCES, what can they do to still stay legal, but not all the extra things that they do. So basically they want to retain all current Salmo BOCES services at the similar staffing levels with salary increases that address the critical issues. And then, but we know that that's going to be a higher cost in contractors if we don't increase for districts. Or they can adjust services to staff that there is zero impact to cost to member districts without impacting the quality of services and compliance. But what is that going to do as far as staffing requirements for each person? You know, how much does each have to do extra? And then basically looking at a different support structure and service delivery models that would result in a decrease to cost of the districts and how that would impact the quality of services and compliances with requirements of students. The Montezuma Cortez superintendent did say that he is intending to apply again to become their own AU. And they have actually already found the third-party auditor. That's what the catch was last year. They didn't find one in time. They actually have already found one. Everyone's agreed, so it's probably a go that he's gonna put that application in for this year. I believe it has to be due in September. Is that right, Todd?
That sounds
I think
right.
it's
And
September.
then it'd be in effect then the year after.
The following year. If it's all,
In all reality, if he puts that application in and he has his ducks in a row, the likelihood of Cortez being allowed to exit BOCES is very high.
yes,
So that means in 2 years' time, we have to look at the amount of money we are spending to contribute to BOCES and make our own choices, because BOCES is going to be challenged to a significant degree with already Durango exiting and now Cortez on the fence of exiting. That will leave a very few, very tiny districts, and BOCES will, with Cortez exiting, there's no way they'll be able to maintain their,
no, that's a third of their,
Personnel.
that's a third of their students across BOCES.
and that means personnel is what goes.
Yeah.
So then you've got people with talent and no jobs, which I'm sure Cortez would like to hire back and
Well, that's what-
probably will.
Tom has already been soliciting
Right.
me that we should contract with them. Because
And
he's gonna
Durango
hire,
does
because he's
that,
gonna
right?
hire the best, quote unquote.
So there's that comes in, let me keep going a little bit, and then we'll get to that. What other big thing that I wanted to ask Todd for is the packet that I put into the minutes. There's a specific one that they made for Mancus. Do you have it with a breakdown of kind of what our thing is? She said that all the supers got it in their SAC meeting.
Then I'm sure I do. I'll
Okay.
get that for you.
So the one I have is like the broad overview of everything. We'll go into that in a minute, but, if you happen to find that, Todd, if you would share that out with everybody.
Mhm.
BOCES also helps put on the regional science fair at Fort Lewis. So that's an extra thing that they don't have to do, that the districts don't pay for. So again, when we're thinking about Cortez maybe leaving or different things, BOCES is gonna have to cut some of those areas, possibly the science fair. Brandy's report, they just had the ESS Teacher Institute. They had almost 70 teachers show up, teachers and parents. They all had a great attendance, and they all said it was great. We're also having our gifted and talented night tomorrow night for Mancus. Where in the campus is that? Do we know?
Cafeteria and library.
Perfect. Thank you, Therese. So the cafeteria and the library, for all of our gifted and talented,
Parents.
that'll be great. And then the finance director, we're hoping to have the audit finalized by next week. We are having a special board meeting this Thursday, so we can, approve that audit. And so if you go into that thing I sent, the BOCES services, so basically, the services that we see are all of the therapists that come to campus. If you go to the parts that we don't see, those are all the ones that are gonna be really hard for us to figure out if Cortez does leave. So we'll have to either decide if we want to keep that with BOCES or if we want to do that on our own. Okay, it would be very hard for us to become our own AU. So more than likely, we're gonna have to figure out the restructuring with BOCES. But just so you kind of know, and then if you go down to the bottom part where it's all in the colors, the highlight colors, that part, I believe Todd has that broken out. So if you want to see specifically what Mancus, the Mancus part of it, then that's how that's all broken out. But I'll just give you some information of exactly where BOCES sits with all of our services for all of our different districts.
So, any progress on getting a report from BOCES, a financial report from BOCES that says, here's Cortez, they're out. Here's how much services are gonna cost for you.
Not yet. Right now, they're trying to finish the audit. So as soon as they finish the audit, hopefully we'll get that.
Because we need to plan. I mean, we just talked
Absolutely.
about that. So we can't plan if we don't have a budget in front of us. That's us.
Right. Right, and most of that will actually come, that's part of what Cortez has to do with this third-party audit, is they have to make sure that yes, Cortez can do what they need to do for their students, but that BOCES can still stay and do everything that it needs to do for the rest of us. So a lot of those numbers will actually come from Cortez's thing. But right now, Scotty's just trying to get the audit done. And as soon as that's done, the budgeting, and then we actually have to do a 5-year budget for BOCES per policy VB, I believe. So, yeah.
And this is not new to us. You've been discussing this with Mr. Cordray as well.
Oh, yeah.
Through your charge with being our BOCES liaison for some time. So just to put it out there, this is not work that's gonna be sudden, but there's a portion of it that will be because we are not in the know. We're waiting. But we know we spend this much money, we give it to BOCES, we get these services, they come back to us. That we can do
Right.
today, right?
Right.
And we don't know what Cortez is gonna do, and we don't know what other districts.
We also don't know what the federal is gonna do, because
Right.
right now, BOCES is mostly funded by IDEA money, which is all federal. And that's all part of, the Department of Education. And so until we know what that's gonna be federal, our October count is a state fund. The IDEA is a December count, and that's federal. So we really don't know how that's gonna mix into this either. So that could actually derail Cortez's idea if that goes away as well. So we really don't know how that's all gonna shake out.
Big case of the unknowns. Any questions, comments? Anybody? Okay, Mr. Cordray, you are up with the superintendent report, please.
So the Board of Education is actively investigating the pros and cons of a potential mill levy override and bond for staff compensation and facility improvements. Audion, Seth, Tier, and I are studying the alignment between preschools and elementary schools and evaluating the standards from CDEC to CDE. We will ask the support of staff to help give us some information for it to be Mancus specific. And then by the end of the school year, we'll have a report for the board on that so that we can see how elementary and preschool line up so we can best serve kids. The instructional leadership team, which is Audion, Seth, James, Tier, and I, have our monthly meeting with our instructional coach on Thursday. And so that's a meeting we do every month so that we can learn to be as effective as possible as an instructional coach. And the school district continues to thrive in all aspects from student academics to student behavior and department operations. So even though we're in the dark days of winter, I can tell the Board of Education that the school district is thriving in many ways. And that's my report, ma'am.
Thank you. Chrissy.
I don't really have much to say. I just gave you the Q2 investments because I wasn't here last month, so I apologize, those are late, but investment report and the quarterlies there. We're on track with everything. Don't really have much to report. Starting the budget for next year. It's basically where my energy is going and trying to split that whole process and salary schedules and that type of thing, so. Nothing unless you have questions for me, but.
Anybody have any questions for Todd or Chrissy? Anyone? No. Thank you for all your good work. I know that you've had even more on your plate lately, both of you. Okay, next up for discussion is it's our first review of our Title IX policies. It is the first pass, if you will, at us looking at them. We did receive a summary of those policy changes and updates, and it is largely dependent upon the change in administration at the level of the federal government. prior to August of twenty twenty-four, most districts were following, President Trump's, Title IX regulations, and, we recently actually updated these policies, and now we're going back. So this policy work is really just we moved, we didn't mean it, we're going back. So we're essentially, mandated to go back. And so it's a pretty simple, policy review. This is our first pass, and we will, look at it again next month. Does anybody have any questions about
Is it just the ACR 3 or is it all the ACs?
It's all the ACRs 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And 1 and 2 just is very simple. It's just a change from sex-based to sexual harassment. And then 3 is the one that speaks more to procedure.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Benally, I had asked you earlier if you would be willing to give us your summary, if you will, on objective 2B prior to the board, looking to vote.
Sure. Objective 2B, put this up here. Just, read it real quick.
It was a very thorough report. It was, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I want to say 10 plus pages typewritten. It was a very well thought out report. There were a lot of, there was a lot of participation at the district level. It's not lost on me that this is the type of thing that I think helps our community understand the real work that's being done on the daily inside the walls of the district. And it's great that it's reported up to the board, but what I would encourage any of you to do is to go read these reports that are posted online, because it really is an in-depth look at exactly how we're meeting, we hope, the initiative or the standard that we have challenged the district with. So 2B is that the Mancos School District students demonstrate emotional intelligence in their daily interactions with peers and adults. And then the discussion was, after presentation, Mr. Benally, if you could.
The discussion was really enlightening. I think that we board members that were present for that report were, I think, more or less pretty happy and surprised at how much dedication has gone into this particular objective. Staff has really taken up the charge to push social emotional learning and to really align with the standards that we set out. They recommended that we accept the different the 5 different standards is standard 1 being above standard, standard 2 is approaching, standard 3 is above. Standard 4 is at standard, and standard 5 is at standard. It makes sense in the discussions that we had because it was discussion between the effects of our efforts on the elementary school and also on secondary. On one hand, we're doing really well in the elementary, but in the secondary, we're still kind of lagging behind and trying to find best practices to get where we want to be at standard or above standard. So we kind of tried to even it out. Where there was discussion about it being above standard and that standard, or where the elementary and the secondary aligned. The one objective that they had, or one standard they had difficulty with, was the one surrounding parents and their involvement. But that was something that they saw that the elementary was really at standard, with pushing above standard, but the secondary was kind of falling behind. There was a lot of really good information that was shared with the different instances that were the different I want to say the concern referrals and how they're being tracked. They're in the beginning of tracking all the actions and requests for different things such as like, discipline, restorative justice requests, and that's gonna be between the early learning, and elementary and secondary. So it was really interesting to get that information and try to break down the data. It's still pretty rough, but the data is being collected and it's actually showing a lot of, adherence and proactive efforts to align with the social emotional learning that we're asking the different, schools to practice.
Mr. Gardner, since you're the one in the room, thank you so much for all the work you guys put in. I was at school during the middle of a day and I saw Mr. Gardner here, both of the school deans, along with Mr. Higginbotham and others I know contributed to it, and you all put in a lot of work, and we thank you because it's not easy to write a report like that, even once a year. It's a lot of work. But I personally appreciate it, and I guess I'm encouraging others to take a moment to look at it because it's very enlightening. So, do we have a motion to accept the report? Does anybody have anything else?
I move that we accept this as at standard.
Now, aren't there several levels though?
There are several levels, but.
You just want to do it across the board?
Yeah, I was just kind of gonna average it in there.
Right, with the caveat that we recognize the need to do more to educate parents and caregivers as,
Need to train parents more.
then we need to give them the opportunity to even know. But that's what the group,
Correct.
recommended.
Okay, so we have a motion to,
Second that.
and we have a second. Heather, can you, any discussion before we call the question?
I just want to say that it was very impressive and I'm really impressed with the restorative justice and the mediation that's going on with our students. And that's been a big change and I'm truly impressed.
I was really excited to hear that both the elementary and the secondary were willing to listen to each other and interact and come up with best practices moving forward. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what comes of it.
I'm excited about that too. I think that's like something that we've not really experienced for a long time in this district. And we are one campus, so it's really heartwarming to know that those discussions and that progress is taking place. And with the kids at the table. So. Okay, Heather, call to question, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Rowan?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hutchison Brown?
Aye. Aye. All right, motion carries 5-0. All right. We are at our opportunity for consent motion.
I move that we approve action items A through F for consent and have a separate vote on the housing.
And Muji, we have a second.
One second.
Okay. In terms of discussion, I do have one minor correction to A, and that is just the spelling of a name. So I'm gonna do it in my handwriting here, Heather. That's okay, on our minutes, just so that they're reflected accurately. Heather, call to question, please.
Mr. Benali?
Aye.
Mr. Figueroa?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Ms. Hutchison Brown?
Aye.
Ms. McWhorter?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, Madam President, I move that we table the housing grant vote and further discussion until the November 2025 meeting, at which time we will know the outcome of the election of the ballot initiative and the housing committee, giving a presentation at the December meeting with all the concerns taken into account so that we are ready to apply for the round of DOH funding from Colorado Proposition 123 in the first quarter of 2026, which traditionally is a larger amount of grant monies to be awarded.
I'll second that.
Okay, Heather, call the question.
Mr. Benali?
Aye.
Mr. Figueroa?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
No.
Ms. Hutchison Brown?
Nay.
Ms. McWhorter?
Aye. Okay, the motion will pass 3-2. We will not be deciding on housing this evening.
We just lost housing.
All right. Future agenda items, and I will say just in follow-up to that particular item, it very well may mean that we lose it, or who knows, the work, since you're tabling it, the work is there. There's not, to my knowledge, much more that's gonna come our way, but if it does, we will share it. And that is really the best that we can do, is to share what is given to us. And what month did you say?
So put it on the November,
Was that the movement was to all the way to November?
You said a
Yes.
time to have, right? Yeah.
November, and then to have the presentation in December, and then move for the.
Of next year,
This year,
housing?
this year.
Or I'm
for
sorry, this year,
November.
twenty twenty-five.
Yep, and then to apply for the Q1 of 2026 DOH grant.
So Todd, will you let us know after you speak with Chaffa if they will no longer support it?
Yeah.
Because if that is the case, then we will need to bring back to the board that the item is dead. And that may very likely be where we end up landing. Okay, future agenda items. We will have both objective, and actually this is gonna move, so I'm gonna explain that. Objective 2A and 2C are both having to do with trauma informed. And we were going to cover that for 10th, but we moved it to 17th because of how much is landing in the 10th, which means it's no fair to do a work session and a vote on the same day. So we decided to keep the work session. We're gonna move the vote on those next two objectives. We're gonna push the vote forward into April. The bond and mill levy discussions will hit us pretty hard in March. And the engagement letter with Magellan Strategies, which backs bond and mill, also are going to be part of that larger discussion in March. So again, that's what pushed us around. And there's other things, but I'm not.
Does the strategic, whatever guys for the bond, are they also, do we also have a
Piper Sandler?
proposal for them, for their services, or is that not?
For which now?
Piper Sandler.
Oh, for Piper, they're still putting their.
What
their.
they-
No.
Performance services, you mean?
Yeah.
Services.
Yeah. No, we have to, we'll be going out to the public with our RFP request for
Okay.
proposal when we're ready to do that.
So that
So
company,
Magellan's the only one that we will get to actually go out and survey and do the work on the MLO and
Yes.
the bond. The other guys are just, this is what you need, that's how much it's gonna be, and hopefully you pay us to get it work done.
That's right. Just a sec, I'm almost done. The other one that we really need to contract with is Piper Sandler. The
Okay,
people who would do the bond if we do a bond. So,
okay.
I
Do they
suggest,
compete with Magellan or is it separate?
no,
two
two
different,
completely separate buckets.
Yeah.
Mill,
right.
bond, totally
No,
separate.
cause Magellan could do the survey about the bond too, right? I mean, isn't that the?
Yeah, they're
They
going
can-
to, yeah.
Right,
They would do, no, and Piper Sandler is the one who does the financial instrument.
Okay.
Who makes the bond
oh, okay,
and then sells the bond to an investor.
And then the
Okay.
company that came in to look at the school for all of the listing of repairs, that actually is a no fee.
right. So Magellan's the only one that we need to look at for a fee for us to hire to help with this.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
our, yeah,
Correct.
that's our only risk, and it's,
Right.
and it's more than a, sorry for me interrupting a minute ago, Victor. And it's more than a risk, it's a hard vendor purchase.
Correct.
We would be
Right.
saying,
It's
yes, we
expense.
wanna buy your purchase, we
Right,
wanna
okay,
buy your
okay.
service.
Right.
Todd, the individual, what's the name of the group that's doing the facilities?
Performance services.
Okay, the performance services. When do we expect their report?
They're going to provide Destry and I a first version probably around the 28th or 29th. And of this month. And then Destry and I are going to see if it makes any sense or not.
Okay.
And then we're gonna prioritize it, meet with them, get additional feedback, and then present to you a prioritized list of things.
So staff needs to have their list to you by this week.
Yes, I will ask, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
They will have costs to that, to.
yes, yes,
Okay.
that's why they've been working
Do you expect,
feverishly.
do you expect that on the 10th?
I expect to have the board completely ready to go by the 10th.
Okay.
You know, and then the 10th, you'll say, you know, that's where the board will be able to opine and say, we like A, better B,
Okay,
and so on.
thank you.
Okay, so we still have a lot more documentation heading our way. we already received the first Magellan.
Yes, in
Right?
December, they gave us
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's just really the finalization.
right. We need to make sure that that's where they're still at, because that proposal is now months old, but they're still their proposal, and then we need to vote on it.
Yeah, I've been keeping them really close and I shared with them the draft of what the board got today too, so that they have the full information as they craft the polling questions.
What I would encourage us to do, rather than struggle over the engagement of that firm, is I would encourage us to concentrate on the permitted and prohibited activities under the Colorado Fair Campaign Practices Act.
Yeah. They're very strict on
They're very
what we
strict,
can do as a
And
board.
we basically cannot do this work. We can't. And so even though we're gonna do the research and we are gonna be given the data, the work to be done, which is why we've backed this up so far, so we have months of time, is the work that will make or break the bond and the mill. And as far as I know, we have 0 people on a committee as of today.
Well, we don't.
So if anybody wants to raise their hand, and not only does it take passion and door-to-door knocking, it takes money. When we had our committee for the best grant, I cannot remember the gift that was given to that committee, but it was several $1,000s to produce. The school district pursuant to this is not allowed to spend more than $50. So how are you gonna do a mailing? How are you gonna do? Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna ask my, our teachers for it, so.
It's just something to take into consideration.
I wanna challenge anybody who's listening, who's passionate about teacher salaries and a bond for the maintaining the beautiful school. We're gonna have to have a group of individuals who will campaign with the facts and money to spread those facts. It's not just a coffee shop conversation. The best grant didn't happen due to a coffee shop conversation. There was a lot put into the back end of that. And so I would encourage people to start thinking about that. How is that gonna happen? It's not gonna happen at the board table. It has to happen in the community. And so that's why we're doing this now. So we have months and months of time.
Todd, let me ask you
Sure.
a question around this steering committee. You're allowed to help support that steering committee, is that correct? Like none of us?
No.
We
That's
can
gotta
give
be totally,
our
gotta be
opinion
totally
if
public.
asked.
What's that?
We can give our opinion if asked.
Mm,
It says that directly.
It
Right,
says,
I read
a
that.
board member, yeah, so it's not solicited by the person answering, blah, blah, blah.
So like, if you get a group of parents and you get teachers and all, who's organizing that? You're saying that that's totally gonna be
Has to be a community
public?
member.
Yeah, I have,
And do they get information from us? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
when they say, can we get a budget? Can we look at what? They'll get all that, we can give them that, but we can't do
you
anything
know
else.
what's a really common practice is the superintendent will take vacation days and do that work during those vacation days. And I have plenty of accrued vacation days to do that I'll never use. So, we won't violate the law. I'll just record those as vacation days and I'll do that work.
In order to actually educate so that the committee is fairly representing. And we are allowed to put together a document of positives and negatives, a basis of fact.
Right.
Now, the committee can go put together materials, the pretty postcards, the whatever, the posters, the things that you see in public. A committee can go campaign how a committee campaigns. It's just like a political committee. They can do whatever they want, but it is our charge to give them the basic fact. And that is, and I would ask us all to read this.
And again, once we get everything, if we decide to go through Magellan, once we get all their stuff, then we can use all their information. Perfect.
Right, that's why we're moving forward with that, so we have the right information and it's not opinion. Again, I've started this whole conversation this evening with, we need to look at fact over opinion. There's a lot of passion and opinion wrapped into all of the discussions we had tonight. But it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it has to be fact. By law, if we as board members start offering our opinion when it comes to mill and bond, voter approved money we can get ourselves in a lot of hot water, as the district can as well. So we have to be very, very careful there. And, you know, mill money is forever money.
As long as we don't
Significant money.
As long as we don't put a sunset in it.
Correct.
And I don't recommend we do that,
No,
because
it would be
creates
crazy.
creates a financial cliff.
Yeah, and a burden for the school district down the road. So, okay, these questions I think are actually gonna be answered tonight in a very relevant way. Did you learn anything new tonight? I'm gonna go this way around, Craig.
That's a tough one. Yes and no. I think it's real good to hear from the staff that are they're concerned with our decisions. I do wish we had more input earlier. And that the information they needed would have been provided. That they would have had their questions answered. About it.
Mr. Hunter.
I don't know that I learned a lot new. I do want to apologize for my outburst after the vote. I shouldn't have made that comment about it being dead. That was wrong on my part. We want to speak as one voice with the board. The decision was made. That's the decision of the board. And I'm fine with going along with what the board decision was.
Okay. Mr. Figueroa, did you learn anything new tonight?
Yeah. I learned, just hearing everybody's different perspectives. When they spoke and hearing all perspectives, when we spoke, that's always. To me, that's part of the work, you know, so, in the end, like we just said, we work as a board and we have to. Work as one once we decide. And then we go out and support that decision as it's made.
Rachel?
I want to thank Chrissy for being honest with where we're at and letting us know that, you know, we're down 21 kids as of right now. Again, that may change, but that.
Let's hope it changes.
Hope it changes. I haven't, you know, last year sitting in this, you know, budget, I had no idea what that really meant. So it's interesting to hear where that comes from. And then also, you know, with this being tabled, I would still really like to have a housing committee report, you know, to hear back, you know, is CHAPA still on board? Like, what are we doing? And then at that point, we can figure out more of the details, I think. That way, when November comes, and we're ready to do this, then it can just go and we can, you know, the questions and the details that we're wondering about now can be a little bit better kind of ironed out. So I think we can keep it as a discussion item for the committee to report back where we're at with it, since it's not, you know, it's not completely done. It's just tabled until November.
Mr. Cordray, do you believe you'll have an update within the next month?
Oh, yeah, I just text the team, so they'll be finding out, so they'll let us, I think that it'll be. I think CHAPA will just be, they're gonna have to figure it out, this is gonna be very surprising to CHAPA.
So my ask is, and it's strictly because you and I are doing the rolling planning, so I have to look all the way down to what we put on the agenda in November. So I'm asking because I want to know if we don't need to slot that time. I want to know now. I don't want to keep something on the agenda and keep beating a discussion item every month when we already have so much on our plates. And so if it's gone, we need to know sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think, and the consultants will be pushing on CHAPA for that too, because they need to know what.
Yeah, right. So it may or may not remain on our update or agenda.
And then go dark and then hit us with it in November and then work.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that's gonna happen though. I mean, we'll see, but. Okay, were you surprised by or unprepared for anything during this meeting? Oh, shock, shock. Mr. Benally. I should start on this side. I will next time. Go ahead.
Craig's gotta use all of his words.
I know, let's not talk this much in a week.
Yeah. Not really. Just the whole idea of trying to figure out who knows what as far as like how we're compensating our staff. Trying to bridge these gaps. I mean, it seems like there's a great deal of information that still needs to be disseminated to staff to know exactly how things are paid for and where that money is coming from. And I think it's until that information is shared, I think it's like everything that we do that has to do with finances is gonna be no uphill battle. And I think that's probably the one thing that was surprising, is that there's still just that lack of.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that after more than a year and a half of putting this out to the public and having presentations and having PowerPoints available, that we were called that we weren't showing transparency. Because this has been out, like I say, for a year and a half. And I'm just surprised at that.
Well, I would echo your sentiment, Tim, because sitting in the seat that I sit in, we have made efforts to share meeting notes after every board meeting.
Yeah.
We have made efforts to go to a digital agenda and share as much as we're able to online. I believe we've made great strides at having a much more open and timely manner of communicating with our entire district and community. Through many processes, whether it be the school resource officer conversation, through you know, all of these initiatives that we've had in front of us, I feel like we have done a better job. So I was absolutely shocked at the fact that we got feedback like 4 days before a vote. And I don't know how to do that better, like without crossing lines that we're not allowed to cross, because we're just not allowed to do a certain amount of overshare, if you will. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we would be creating fires before fires needed to be created. So there's a really fine line with sharing, but not oversharing and having eyes on the prize, if you will, right? If nothing else, and this will at least constitute people noticing bond and mill discussion and maybe creating a campaign committee, if you will. I personally am surprised that there's still a gigantic black hole of assumption, misinformation, unknown, feeling like you're in the dark, because that is not what the board has been
No, and I'm
working
not
towards for a
surprised at
long
the lack
time.
of attention to details, that people had questions about details. I'm just surprised that, you know, I heard that this has been under wraps, basically, and we've been online every month and talking about it. We've done presentations to staff. We've done presentations in the newspaper. That's all. Like I say, there's always gonna be questions. There's always gonna be details that need to be answered. That part doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, Victor,
I'm
unprepared, surprised by.
received information about 21 students, that were 21 students down from last year. That's, you know, a significant amount of money that we were expecting. Granted, it was, you know, projection, but nevertheless. And I do agree that this fluctuates, but I don't know that I've seen 21 students before.
We've been
in my
steady
3
for a
years.
while, within a few.
Huh?
We've been pretty steady for a while.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's 21 on top of the 10 that we already lost. I mean, that's,
Right.
ah.
Well, we lost 10 out of a
11.
projection, 11
Still-
out of a projection,
Still though,
Off the projection.
10 out of a projection.
ah.
So I was surprised about that, I guess, and my hope is not a trend.
Me too.
Because we have been pretty steady, you know, those things have shown over time. So, but I just wonder where the kids are gone, why is that?
Has
So,
it been just recently that we've lost those students?
I honestly don't know. I just went into Power School and looked, so I don't know when they exited.
That has anything to do with our.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it was also the conversation at Case this last week. This time of year has like a really low enrollment. And then by the time August comes, that's why superintendents we're having a big conversation about average daily attendance for how school districts are funded and not liking that either.
But even, that being said, we still had 11 kids that, and again, that's a certain amount of money we were expecting.
Yeah.
And that's higher than what it's been in the past.
I think we projected about 6 to 8 more than we ended the year with.
Right.
And that was
Which made it
ambitious.
worse. Yeah, right. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing I was the most surprised about. One thing I would like to maybe put to Todd in the group is, if we find out that there are specific places these students have gone, like a homeschool or something, is there something that we could do to potentially recover some of that? So maybe look into just some options.
Yeah, to that end, we started a PLC.
Cool.
Seth, James and I have started a PLC for this very specific issue.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Next is, were you able to communicate and be understood on all topics? And I'm gonna start with Rachel.
I feel like I was.
I felt like I won.
Yes.
Okay. You too?
The amount of words from Chris.
And I just want y'all to know, it's still only 8:35. We're still doing just fine on time, considering. I've seen board meetings go till 10 o'clock at night, so, or later.
Yes, and Jesus.
Yeah. I say that and Blake's sitting in the room and he's like, oh.
We never went past 10 o'clock. The whole 8 years. Because Tim was always sitting there.
Oh my gosh, he's like,
He was hungry.
he does not let
In
up.
the middle of not even open.
Jeez. Did the board cross into operations this evening during the meeting? If so, when and how, Rachel?
I don't really think we did at this meeting. They didn't really talk about anything that was operational, so.
I agree.
Yeah. Fine.
Were there any decisions made by the board at this meeting that need to be communicated to the public? Yes.
Yes.
And, I'm sure that will happen because, we actually, just to cover the transparency, we're actually making sure that the journal gets full access to our agenda. So they have everything that you all have. And then it's their choice as to what they cover. So, and they're given access at the same time we are. Is there anyone that the board would like to thank? I do have a note. I'd like to thank, all of those that put together Objective 2B. Because I think that was a load of work. And even I wasn't even here to hear it live, but I did read it and spoke to many. So is there anybody else that you guys can think of that?
Well, I'd like, most have left to thank the participation that we had tonight.
I'm not writing 30, thank you, no.
No, we're not.
But I agree.
Public thank you.
Public thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, but are there any others?
Yeah, we, depending on how things go, Jason Armstrong's been working, holding meetings.
And he was here.
As a co-chair.
Tonight?
No, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
he was not here.
So he's one that we really need to thank for all this, the hard work he's put into this as well.
Yeah, no matter which way.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah, he was not
he's
here.
been amazing.
Maybe we should just consider the committee in general.
I want to thank the food service folks.
Oh, there you go.
For their time of getting that.
I don't know that
set
was
up.
that food service tonight?
Tonight was Mona.
Tonight was not food service.
Tonight was
Right.
Mona, but still, it was very good.
So thanks, Todd. That was great.
Well, Casey got it all ordered.
Thanks,
figured
Casey.
out.
Okay, got it. I did just do an email or a written thank you.
Yeah.
So remember those notes I had you guys sign? It was because of thank yous them. But saying that, there's a stack right there. So I need you guys to sign at least like 4 or 5 of those since I now have more to do. So please. We were supposed to be passing those out during the meeting. So if you guys could take 2 or 3 minutes, that would be great. And in wrap up, our next work session is March 10th. at 5 at this point, unless something were to come about and we were to push it up to 4:30 like we did this time. Our next regular meeting is March 17th at 6 p.m. So, is there anything else? Anybody? All right, it is,
Can I say something?
yes, sir, you may.
I made the comment on transparency.
Well, you weren't the only one, Blake.
I know, but I look at me personally, I wanted to be at that meeting, but I had already had business plans in Durango that day, and I could not get there that early in the afternoon. You guys are hurting yourself by not allowing these things to go in the evening where more people can get off work and attend. Then this, when you have these kind of situations arise, so, you know, instead of moving it up to 4:30, maybe you should move it back to 5:30. I know what it takes to sit in that chair, because I've done it for 8 years. And I know it gets late into the evening. But remember, every one of you sitting there, me included, volunteered to do that job.
You don't have to tell me. Hundreds of hours of time.
So, I think it looks better for the board to accommodate the general public than it does.
And the alternate side to that I think that we're trying to be sensitive to oftentimes is that, especially with these strat plan reports and people from the school that are presenting who don't live in Mancos because they can't afford housing here, they have to come back. And so a lot of times we're also trying to roll into the ending of a day to make it easier on our staff. So the balance is make it easy on the staff, get the public to attend. You know, the beauty of COVID is that device right there that allows people to, if they can't attend, you can watch. We even have a YouTube channel now. We didn't have that when you were sitting up here,
No.
right? So yeah, so the abilities for people to participate are much higher than they ever have been, but we're still not, and nor will we ever meet all those needs. So it is the paying attention to offer opinion that matters, really, truly.
And you're not wrong, but it's
I
just,
agree with you.
it's
It's
just a
just hard.
perception.
It is not just perception, it's practice, and it's a really hard place to meet all the needs.
You know, and Todd, I think, you know, I have a lot of respect for you. You made one comment tonight that killed you.
You know, we're still live, right?
I know.
But go ahead.
When you said you're the highest paid person in this district, and when you said you couldn't afford housing in Mancos, putting 8 units in Mancos is not gonna solve that problem, and I think you hurt yourself. It's my opinion.
I think that's the reality of the situation we're in. I mean, I think your highest paid employee, if you will, I mean, one would assume, and I don't know that to be fact, truthfully. But if that were the case, not by the hour, exactly. But if that were the case, and that person cannot afford housing today, and that's a big differentiator, right? I said, I own a home here and I moved back 10 years ago. I barely snuck in under the line. I couldn't do it now because it's just insane. There's no place for people to go. I love the ideas. I love that teachers are saying, maybe I should rent out a room. Maybe you should, but the district can't participate in that, right? That has to be on them. So I think that was a true statement of fact. That's the reality we live in.
But it also can, you know, we all know what people hear, so it's this much of a conversation.
Yeah, it is the reality that we live in.
But again, I appreciate all you guys. I do.
Thank you.
I really do. And,
It's a tough place to sit.
you know,
And we will
if
do
I
our
may,
best.
one more thing. Got me going.
Now it's a meeting in public and I'm just letting it happen.
Just public participation at the end. I couldn't agree more with trying to increase our teacher salary. It's been, since Tim's been on the board.
That's the biggest
since
challenge we have and
06
always
or
will be.
04 or 02, whenever he was. And that's a tough ask, and it's a tough ask for the property taxpayers. I'm still passionate about sales tax. I think that's still a conversation that needs to be had at the county level.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
Yeah, well.
There's plenty of those conversations happening and opportunity to
and I-
apply, whether it be through
I'd
the
be more
town
than
or.
happy to be involved in that and, you know.
Sign them up for the committee.
Yeah, there you go. All right, 8:47, I'm adjourning this meeting. Thank you all. Heather, will you please hit the button, please?